There are moments in life when the soul is yearning for something deeper, a connection beyond the surface, a presence that resonates with your inner world without words, without effort. And yet many walk through life unaware of how close they are to meeting the one meant for them. It is not always loud, it is not always dramatic, often it is gentle, it is subtle, and it comes not by your command but by divine orchestration. There are no accidents in the universe. Every meeting, every delay, every silence, it all serves a purpose. And when it comes to meeting your soulmate, the process isn't always a flash of lightning. It is a quiet unfolding, a path God gently lays before you. He doesn't always shout. Sometimes he whispers through the flow of events, through the coincidences you ignore, through the timing that frustrates you, through people who come into your life and shift your perspective forever. Today we explore 6 sacred ways in which the divine introduces you to the person your soul already knows, but your mind has yet to understand. It will not be as you expect. It may even go unnoticed until hindsight reveals the truth, but if you look closely with stillness and presence, you will see it. Because the one meant for you is never just found, they are revealed. There are seasons in your life when everything seems to be going according to plan. You've drawn out your future in neat, clean lines. You've told yourself when you'll find love, how it will happen, where it will happen, and with whom. You think if you follow the schedule, love will follow too. But that's not how divine timing works. Real love, the kind that touches your soul, is not found inside your plans. It is found inside your surrender. God often disrupts your plans not to harm you, but to align you. Because sometimes the very thing you're trying to control is the thing that's keeping you from receiving what's already been prepared for you. You may not realize it, but while you're searching in the place you think love should be, God is guiding you through detours, delays, cancellations, redirections, not because he's punishing you, but because he's protecting the meeting point. Sometimes love doesn't come when you feel most ready. It comes when you least expect it. When you're broken, when you're rebuilding, when you're not looking. That's when destiny quietly walks in. And you don't realize it at first, because your heart still carries the shape of who you thought it would be. You keep trying to fit this divine encounter into a version you created. But love from God doesn't follow human timing or human logic. It shows up when your soul is ripe, even if your mind is confused. You may have felt frustrated by delays in your life, plans that fell through, relationships that ended before they ever fully began, moments you felt abandoned or overlooked. But what if those weren't accidents? What if every one of those detours was God rearranging your life so that you could be in the right place at the right time for the right person to arrive? Not when you thought you were ready, but when you were truly open. It might be a job you didn't take that leads you to a place you never planned to be. It might be a conversation with a stranger who feels oddly familiar. It might be running late one day and meeting someone in a space you never would have walked into on time. You call it coincidence. But heaven calls it orchestration. God is not in a rush like you are. He's not interested in fitting into your calendar. He's building a masterpiece, not a quick fix. And sometimes he has to empty your schedule to fill it with divine purpose. That's why the person meant for you doesn't arrive on your timing. They arrive on God's. And when they do, it won't be forced. It won't be loud. It won't feel like your other connections. It will feel different. Because it will be aligned, not arranged by your mind. You may have cried over the ones who left. You may have begged for certain relationships to work. But if they had worked, you might have missed the one that was created for you, not just chosen by you. Because there is a difference between who you want and who is woven into your story by heaven. Sometimes love arrives through what seems like inconvenience. Sometimes it's disguised as an interruption. But when you look deeper, it's divine placement. That person may come into your life during a time of uncertainty, when you're questioning everything, when nothing feels stable. But in that moment, they bring a stillness, a calmness, not because they fix your life, but because their presence doesn't add to your noise. They remind you that God knew what he was doing all along. So if your plans are not working, if your timing is falling apart, take heart. Love is not late. Love is not lost. Love is being aligned, and when you finally meet them, it will make sense why it didn't happen sooner, why nothing before worked, why all the delays were necessary, because the timing wasn't off. It was sacred. Love doesn't follow clocks, it follows calling. It doesn't need to be on time, it just needs to be in divine time. And when it arrives, you'll understand. God didn't forget you. He was preparing something you didn't even know you needed. There is a sacred unfolding that takes place deep within the soul code and the soul quiet, often invisible to the outside world. It's that season when you begin to change from the inside out, not because life is perfect, but because something inside you is tired of the old, ready for something deeper, something truer. It's the moment your soul whispers, I want more than survival, I want alignment. And when you begin to listen to that whisper, something remarkable happens. God sends someone whose soul is tuned to the same frequency. Not before your growth, not after your pain, but right in the middle of your becoming. This is not the meeting of two perfect people. It's the crossing of two evolving souls, two beings who have walked through fire, who have questioned their worth, who have peeled back layers of themselves in silence. And in this season, where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming, God orchestrates an encounter that reflects the truth you're just starting to believe. You are worthy of real, grounded, unconditional connection. When you're healing, you're raw, you're tender. You're not wearing masks anymore. You're no longer entertaining love that feels like performance. You stop chasing people to feel complete. You start finding joy in being whole by yourself. And it's in that space, when you're not seeking completion but walking in transformation, that someone appears. Someone who doesn't save you but sees you. Someone who doesn't fix you but flows with the new rhythm of your heart. It's easy to believe you'll meet the right person when you're at your best, when your life is in order, when your past is behind you, when your scars are invisible. But the divine doesn't work through your perfection. It works through your authenticity. The most aligned souls are revealed when you're most honest about who you are becoming. And that's why your path doesn't cross with your soulmate at the top of the mountain. It crosses when you're climbing, when you're sweating, struggling, evolving. You might meet them when you've just let go of something that was breaking you, when you're learning to speak kindly to yourself, when you're praying for strength instead of shortcuts, when you're learning to stand alone without fear. That's when the divine smiles. Because in that space, your heart begins to radiate a new energy. One that says, I'm not chasing love, I'm becoming it. And love cannot resist that kind of transformation. It is drawn to it, like light to light. This person enters not to distract you from your growth, but to deepen it. They challenge your thoughts without breaking your spirit. They reflect your progress without making you perform. They walk with you through your healing, not as a solution, but as a mirror that shows you how far you've come, a mirror that makes you realize you are no longer who you were when you used to settle for less. The timing feels divine because it is. You don't have to try hard. You don't have to explain your worth. You don't have to fight for their presence. They come in quietly, but their presence is grounding. You feel safe, not because you trust easily, but because your soul recognizes them. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's familiar in a way that calms you. That's how you know it's from God. Sometimes we think we have to be fully healed to find someone. But the truth is, healing is not a destination, it's a journey. And God doesn't wait for perfection, He waits for surrender. When you begin to align your life with peace, truth, and purpose, you open a door. And through that door walks a person who is walking the same path. So if you find yourself in a season of growth, don't be discouraged if you are alone. Don't rush, don't settle, because that season is sacred. And in that season, without warning, without effort, the right soul will appear, not to complete you, but to walk beside the stronger, clearer, more awakened version of you. They won't pull you backward. They won't slow you down. They will feel like a continuation of the healing you started within yourself. And when you look back, you'll understand the growth wasn't just for you. It was to prepare you for them, and them for you. Till sometimes we're taught to believe that love must come with a whirlwind, that it has to be butterflies in the stomach, a racing heart, an obsession that keeps you up at night. We think love is meant to be fireworks and chaos, but that's not how God's love feels. That's not how a divinely aligned connection enters your life. When it's from God, it doesn't shake you with confusion. It steadies you with peace. When you meet the one who is meant for you, you don't feel an overwhelming rush of adrenaline. You don't feel the anxiety of it, do they like me? Or am I enough? Instead, you feel calm, quiet, whole. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and finding a place untouched by the wind. Their presence doesn't excite your drama. It soothes your soul. It doesn't make you feel out of breath. It makes you feel like you can finally breathe. You can't explain it, and yet everything in you feels it. A kind of stillness you didn't even know you were longing for. A subtle gravity that keeps pulling you back to them, not through obsession, but through alignment. It's not loud, it's not boastful, but it's consistent, present, gentle. You can be silent with them and still feel heard. You can be yourself around them and feel loved, not judged. This peace isn't because they are perfect, it's because something about their energy speaks fluently to your soul. Your walls begin to fall, not because you're careless, but because you finally feel safe. You're not trying to impress them. You're not shrinking to be accepted. You're just being, and that's enough. That's always been enough. And now you have someone who sees that too. Peace like this is rare in a world full of noise. It's rare to find someone who doesn't add to your chaos, but reminds you of who you are in the quiet. And maybe that's how God lets you know, through peace, not pressure. Through a gentle presence, not emotional highs and lows. This kind of love doesn't demand, it doesn't confuse, it doesn't rush, it just is. You might have been used to love that felt like walking on eggshells. Like proving your worth every day, like questioning yourself when they pulled away, doubting yourself when they came close. You may have thought that kind of tension meant passion, that love was supposed to be unpredictable. But now, here comes someone who changes that narrative. Someone who doesn't leave you guessing. Someone who shows up with stillness and makes you wonder why you ever settled for storms. They sit with you in silence, and that silence becomes sacred. They speak, and their words don't overwhelm you. They settle you. Even in their absence, you feel no panic, no fear of abandonment. Just a steady assurance that they are not here to play games with your heart. They are here to walk beside it. The peace you feel is not an illusion. It's not an accident. It's divine confirmation, because peace is one of the deepest forms of spiritual alignment. God does not bring confusion to your heart. He brings clarity. And when the right soul arrives, you will feel it first, not in your thoughts, not even in your emotions, but in your spirit. This kind of peace may be unfamiliar at first. You may even question it, because you're not used to love without drama. You may wonder, why am I not anxious? Or why does this feel so calm? But don't run from that feeling. That calm is your answer. That calm is your confirmation. That calm is how you know you are standing on holy ground where love isn't loud, but it is deep, where it doesn't demand attention. It invites presence. So when they enter your life and everything within you exhales, when their presence quiets your overthinking, when they don't just understand your words, but the pauses between them. Pause, breathe, recognize the gift. You're not falling in love. You're grounding in love. You're not being swept away. You're being held steady. This isn't fantasy. This is reality refined by heaven. This is not love that roars. It's love that roots. And when you find it, you'll finally understand. Real love doesn't need to shout, because the soul hears peace louder than noise. Love doesn't always wear a name tag. It doesn't always walk into your life with flowers and poetic promises. Sometimes it slips into your world quietly, disguised as something else entirely. A stranger with a kind word, a friend who listens a little deeper, a colleague who challenges your thinking. Even someone who triggers you at first, someone who stirs something inside you that you can't quite explain. That's how divine love often begins, not with romance, but with recognition. It's one of the most beautiful and humbling truths of life, that the person meant for your soul might first appear as nothing more than a background character. You're not looking at them through the lens of love. You're not trying to impress. You're not putting on a show. And that's what makes it sacred, because you're being your most honest, most unguarded self. When it's from God, the relationship begins in stillness. You don't even realize what's forming. A bond, a bridge, a quiet understanding that doesn't ask for more than presence. It could be a conversation at the end of a long day. It could be someone who offers you help when you're not used to receiving it. It could be someone you're assigned to work with, someone you clash with at first, only to find out that behind your differences is a soul that mirrors your own. You may not feel the rush of romance. No heartbeat skipping, no dramatic moment of eye contact that changes everything. What you feel instead is familiarity, an unspoken connection. You don't know why, but something about them feels like truth. true. It feels like something inside you softens when they're around. You laugh more freely, you listen more deeply. And without knowing it, you begin to trust them, not with your secrets, but with your presence. Sometimes the person destined for your heart comes into your life during a season where love isn't even on your mind. You're focused on healing. You're trying to find your purpose. You've let go of the idea of needing someone. And right there in that space of clarity and growth, they appear, not to complete your life, but to walk beside the life you're building. They might challenge you. They might even frustrate you, but it's never in a way that feels destructive. It's in a way that awakens parts of you, that sharpens your understanding, that shows you who you really are beneath the patterns you've outgrown. You may think this isn't what love is supposed to look like. And you're right, it's not what you expect, but it's what your soul has been quietly praying for. You see, God doesn't just give you what you want, He gives you what will grow you. So sometimes He sends your soulmate in the form of a lesson first, in the form of a friend, in the form of someone who teaches you patience, presence, compassion. And slowly, without either of you realizing it, that relationship begins to take root, not in fantasy, but in truth. You realize they've become part of your rhythm, they know your silences, they understand your moods, they care about your growth. And one day when you're sitting with them, maybe over a simple cup of tea or in the middle of a casual conversation, it hits you. This is it. This is the connection you never knew you needed, not because they make your heart race, but because they make your spirit rest. The greatest love stories often begin without intention. They grow through presence, not pursuit. They evolve through shared spaces, quiet support, and honest connection. You don't realize how deep it's grown until you try to imagine your days without them, and it feels incomplete. So don't overlook the people who arrive in your life without grand entrances. Don't dismiss the ones who don't try to charm you, but consistently show up. Love doesn't always look like a fairy tale in the beginning. Sometimes it looks like a conversation you didn't want to end. A disagreement that taught you more about yourself. A friend who stayed. A stranger who saw you. Because when love is from God, it doesn't need to announce itself. It hides in the ordinary until it becomes extraordinary. It waits in stillness until your soul is ready to see, Sifr. And when it's revealed, you'll understand love didn't arrive late. It arrived quietly, and it was there all along. There is a rare kind of soul that enters your life not to change you, but to remind you of who you are. They don't come with pressure. They don't come with ultimatums. They don't demand you to evolve. And yet somehow just being in their presence awakens something deep within you. Not out of fear, not out of shame, but out of alignment, out of love, out of truth. These people challenge you, but not in ways that bruise your spirit. They challenge the limitations you've placed on yourself. They question the pain you've normalized. They hold up a mirror not to criticize you, but to help you remember your depth. When you're around them, you begin to notice how your excuses feel heavier, how your old patterns no longer fit. Not because they told you to change, but because their energy reveals how far you've drifted from your own potential. And this is the beauty of a spiritually aligned connection. They don't try to save you. They trust your process. They don't speak over you. They listen through you. They don't impose their journey onto you. They honor your timing. They lead by example. They walk with quiet integrity, and their very life inspires you to elevate. You begin to feel the subtle shift. You want to be more patient, not because they demanded it, but because their calm teaches you grace. You want to be more honest, not because they guilt you into transparency, but because their presence makes honesty feel safe. You want to pray more, reflect more, be still more. Not to impress them, but because their spiritual rhythm makes your own soul remember the rhythm it once knew. They don't preach at you. They live beside you. They show you without words what growth looks like in action. It's in the way they respond to stress. It's in how they treat strangers. It's in their consistency when no one is watching. And slowly, without pressure, you begin to reflect the same values. When it's real, when it's written in the fabric of your destiny, it doesn't dissolve with distance. It deepens. You may go years without speaking. You may grow in different directions. And still, when life brings you back together, it's as if no time has passed. The bond remains untouched by the chaos of the world, because it wasn't built on convenience. It was built on connection, soul to soul, spirit to spirit. This isn't about holding on desperately. It's not about waiting in pain. Feuer. It's about trusting that what is yours by divine design will never truly be lost, that no matter how far the winds carry you, the gravity of God's intention will always bring you home to the people meant to walk beside you. Sometimes the delay has purpose, sometimes the distance is preparation. You grow, they grow. Life teaches you both what love really is, not through clinging but through letting go. And in the letting go, you learn what remains, what stays, what lives on without constant attention. And when the time is right, life weaves your paths together again, not by force but by flow. You may find each other in a coffee shop, years later, both older, both softer. You may reconnect online with a single message that feels like no time has passed. You may pass them on the street and something in you pauses, a knowing, a remembrance. And when you speak again, it's not awkward, it's not foreign. It's as if your souls had been speaking all along, even while your lives moved in separate rhythms. This is how God works. He doesn't rush sacred things. He allows time to refine them. He uses separation not to destroy, but to deepen, to teach you that love is not always about constant presence, but about persistent resonance, that even if the world pulls you apart, your souls still hum the same melody. So don't dismiss the ones who return. Don't ignore the paths that cross again and again. Pay attention to the people who keep showing up, not out of effort, but out of divine design. Because sometimes the person meant for your soul isn't someone new. It's someone familiar, someone who's been orbiting your world in quiet harmony, waiting for the right moment to land once again. And when that moment comes, you'll know, not because of grand words, not because of romantic gestures, but because your soul will exhale. Because what was once scattered now feels aligned. Because what life separated, love divine, enduring love, has gently brought back together. There's something rare, almost sacred, about meeting someone who sees you, not just the version of you that the world applauds, but the parts you usually keep hidden, the soft places, the quiet wounds, the unspoken fears, the dreams you whisper only in solitude. When the right soul comes into your life, they don't fall in love with your performance. They're not dazzled by your image. They connect with something deeper, something raw and real, because they don't mirror your ego, they mirror your essence. You may be used to people who are drawn to your strengths, your smile, your energy, your success, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's incomplete, because true love, divinely aligned love, goes beyond what is visible. It reaches into the silent chambers of your heart. So, your heart. It sees the places you've been hiding, and not only do they see it, they hold it without judgment. This kind of person doesn't just admire you, they understand you, sometimes without you even needing to explain. They recognize the grief behind your laughter, the resilience behind your silence, the longing behind your independence. It's as if they've walked similar roads, as if your soul stories were written in the same ink. They won't always say the right things, but they'll feel the right thing. You'll sit across from them and sense that they're not just listening to your words, they're reading between them. They know when your "I'm fine" isn't the truth. They sense the hesitation in your tone, the weight behind your pauses. And somehow that awareness makes you feel safe, not exposed but seen. When they reflect you, it's not about imitation, it's about resonance. They don't copy your pain, they connect with it. They don't echo your dreams, they water them. And in that mirroring, healing begins. Not the kind that fixes you overnight, but the kind that reminds you, you're not alone in this. You start to realize that you're not too much, that your wounds don't make you unlovable, that your fears don't make you weak, that your depth isn't something to shrink. Because this person doesn't pull away when they see the truth, they lean in, and in their presence you begin to accept parts of yourself you used to hide. They mirror the things you've buried under years of pretending, and gently, their love becomes a light that helps you face those shadows. You become more honest with yourself. You start asking deeper questions. You begin to peel back the layers not to impress them, but because you feel safe enough to do so. And they're not perfect either. You see their depth too, their brokenness, their hopes, their truth. And instead of trying to fix each other, you hold space, you grow together, not in performance but in presence. The relationship becomes less about who's right and more about what's real. It's different from surface love, the kind that only thrives in sunshine. This kind of connection survives storms, not because you never disagree, but because your bond was never built on appearances. It was built on truth, on soul, on the quiet knowing that says, I see you, even when you can't. They don't make you feel like you have to be someone else. They make you feel like you can finally be you, not the polished version, not the brave face. Just you, unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic, and that kind of freedom is rare. Because in a world that rewards masks, they fall in love with your bare face. So when you meet someone who doesn't just notice your light but honors your shadows, someone who reflects your spirit more than your style, someone who sees your mess and still chooses to stay, pay attention. That's not ordinary. That's not fleeting. That's the kind of connection heaven orchestrates. Spirit more than yours. One that mirrors not the loudest parts of you, but the truest. And in that mirror, you'll see something more than a reflection. You'll see redemption. A reminder that love, when it's real, doesn't demand you to be more. It gently shows you that you already are. There was a time when you mistook chaos for passion, when love felt like walking on a tightrope, always off balance, always bracing for the next emotional storm. You thought the highs and lows were normal. You thought the intensity meant it was real. You were taught, perhaps by experience, that love had to hurt a little, that being kept in suspense, confused, and emotionally tired was just part of the journey. You didn't know any better. You thought that was just how it was. And then someone entered your life who changed everything, not with grand gestures or promises, but with peace, with presence, with consistency. They didn't play games. They didn't push and pull. They didn't make you question your worth. Instead, they made you feel safe, seen, settled. And that calm, it startled you. You weren't used to it. You weren't used to someone staying steady when things got hard. You weren't used to conversations that led to understanding instead of arguments. You weren't used to gentle love. You were used to love that felt like survival. Love that tested your limits. Love that made you feel like you had to earn every drop of affection. But this person, they didn't make you earn peace. They gave it freely. And slowly, the storms you once accepted as normal began to feel foreign. The emotional roller coasters you thought were love started to look more like wounds. You began to realize how much of your past was built on fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. And in the absence of fear, something beautiful happened. Your nervous system started to heal. They didn't try to control you. They didn't need to be dramatic to feel important. They loved you in a way that gave you room to breathe. And that space, the emotional and spiritual room to just be, was the most loving thing of all. They showed you that love doesn't have to hurt to be real, that being at peace with someone is more powerful than constantly trying to fix something broken. You began to crave this calm. Not because it was boring, but because it was safe. Because it allowed your true self to rise to the surface without fear of being criticized or abandoned. You found yourself relaxing. You laughed more. You slept deeper. You stopped bracing for emotional impact. And when you looked back at the chaos you used to endure, it didn't make sense anymore. Why did you accept so little? Why did you fight so hard for people who didn't fight for you? Because before peace, all you knew was pain. But now you've tasted something different. Now you know what harmony feels like. And it doesn't mean there aren't disagreements or difficult days. But even in those moments, there's respect, there's listening, there's love. The kind of love that says, I won't leave you in this storm. I'll help you find stillness again. They don't need to raise their voice to be heard. They don't punish you with silence. They speak truth, but with gentleness. And in their quiet strength, you find your own. You realize that love isn't supposed to exhaust you. It's supposed to restore you. It's supposed to feel like coming home after years of running. And the most beautiful part, you didn't even know you needed this kind of love until it found you. You didn't know how tense you'd been until their peace began to unravel you. Not to destroy, but to heal. To show you that the storm wasn't love. The storm was your conditioning, and now in their calm, you're learning what love really is. So when you meet someone who doesn't make your heart race with anxiety, but makes your spirit exhale with relief, don't push it away. Don't label it too calm or too quiet. Sometimes the peace that confuses you is the very healing your soul has been crying out for, and in that peace you'll begin to rewrite your story. Story no longer driven by chaos, but by clarity, no longer shaped by wounds, but by wisdom. Because when love is real, when it's aligned with the divine, it doesn't make your life louder. It makes your life softer. And in that softness, you finally remember what it means to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel truly loved. There comes a point in your journey when you finally grow tired of trying to force love, Tired of overthinking, chasing, planning, bending yourself just to be chosen. You've tried to control the narrative, timing, people, outcomes. You've clung to what felt close, even if it wasn't right. You've mistaken attention for affection, intensity for intimacy, and patterns for purpose. And still, something always felt incomplete. Because deep down, your soul was never meant to beg for what was already written in divine timing. Then one day, without drama, you stop. You don't give up on love, you let go of the need to control how it comes. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop searching through the noise for a voice to call you home. You begin to turn inward, you begin to heal. You begin to realize that love isn't something to be earned, it's something to be received. And in that sacred space of surrender, they appear. Not with fireworks, not in grand gestures, but through the back door of your awareness, in a moment you never expected, in a place you weren't looking, maybe as a friend, maybe as a stranger, maybe even as a challenge at first, but something about them doesn't pass you by, it lingers, it softens you, it makes you look twice. You didn't orchestrate it, you didn't chase it, you weren't even waiting for it. But that's why it feels so different, so divine. Because it's not something you created out of fear or desperation. It's something God revealed when your hands were finally open to receive. There's a freedom that comes with letting go of control. You stop trying to be perfect. You stop trying to present the best version of yourself. You start showing up in your truth, messy, honest, real. And that version of you, the one not hiding, not performing, is the version they fall in love with. Not because you made them, but because they recognize something in you that called to their soul. You see, the moment you stop chasing love, you start aligning with it. You begin to trust the unfolding. You begin to believe that what's meant for you cannot miss you, not when you're grounded in presence, not when you're walking in peace. Love doesn't always show up when you're ready by your definition. It shows up when you're aligned, when your soul says, I'm ready to be seen for who I truly am. You realize then that the surrender wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Because in trying to control the journey, you were often choosing what felt familiar, not what was meant for your highest growth. You were choosing based on fear of being alone, not the fullness of being whole. And so God had to wait. Wait for the day you would loosen your grip. Wait for the day you'd say, I trust your timing more than my own understanding. And when that day came, when your hands no longer clutched illusions, when your heart was no longer rushing ahead, they walked in, quietly, peacefully. They didn't fill a void, they met you in your wholeness. They weren't a rescue, they were a reflection of what surrender can bring. A reminder that when you let go of chasing love, love finds you, and not just any love. A love that doesn't make you chase it. A love that doesn't require you to shrink or fight or prove. A love that simply feels like truth. A love that feels like returning home to a part of yourself that you forgot while trying to be everything for everyone. So if you're in a season of letting go, if you finally stopped controlling, if you finally surrendered, don't fear the stillness. Don't rush the process. Trust that in this quiet space, something sacred is unfolding. And one day, without warning, you'll look up and realize love didn't forget you. It was just waiting for you to stop trying to build it with your hands, so God could place it gently in your heart. Because the most beautiful love stories aren't the ones you chase. They're the ones that find you when you finally remembered your worth and opened your hands to receive what was yours all along. It's often not in the noise that truth arrives, not in the rush, not in the endless scrolling, the crowded conversations, or the mental battles where you're trying to figure everything out. God doesn't usually reveal destiny in chaos. He whispers it in silence. And when it comes to love, real, soul-connected, God-ordained love, it often begins in the stillness. In a moment when everything else fades, when you're not looking for answers but simply being, it's there that the veil lifts and you begin to see what has been quietly waiting for your awareness. You may have walked past them before, maybe you talked, maybe you even knew each other. But it wasn't the right time. Your heart was loud. Your mind was cluttered. You were distracted by desire, expectation, fantasy. You were too busy trying to find love your way. And in doing so, you couldn't recognize what heaven had already placed beside you. Sometimes love doesn't enter your life. It's revealed in it, not as something new, but as something long hidden in plain sight. Then one day in a quiet moment, in your room, in prayer, in a sunrise, in a dream, you feel it. You don't hear a loud voice. You don't get a dramatic sign. But something in you shifts, a gentle nudge, a quiet knowing, a soft awareness rising from your spirit, not your mind. You see someone differently. You feel a presence that has always been there, but now it feels full, aligned, real. This is how God moves, not always with lightning and thunder, but with light, with peace, with the subtle revelation of what has been divinely orchestrated from the start. You may have spent years asking, where is the one? And all along God was saying, I'm preparing your eyes to see them, because the most sacred connections are not always the most obvious ones. They don't announce themselves with grand entrances. They don't demand your attention. They wait quietly until your heart is still enough to listen, until your ego is quiet enough to hear what your soul already knows, that love was never absent. It was simply concealed by noise, and in those still moments the truth becomes clear. You feel the resonance in your body, not anxiety, not butterflies, but peace, not excitement that comes from fantasy, but clarity that comes from truth. It feels like, how did I not see this before? But the answer is simple. Your soul was still in the process of opening, of becoming ready to receive what was already there. You may find them in the calm after a storm, when you've stopped performing, when your heart is finally honest with itself, when you're not chasing a person, but becoming one with your purpose. That's when the stillness speaks. That's when the divine pulls back the curtain and reveals someone whose presence feels like peace, whose soul speaks in silence louder than others ever could in words. It's in solitude that you begin to see beyond appearances. You begin to value presence over performance, character over charm. You recognize the beauty in someone's consistency, their kindness, their grounding, and then you realize they've been there, maybe not always physically, but energetically, spiritually. They've been orbiting your life, waiting for your heart to recognize its echo in theirs. This moment of revelation doesn't come through obsession. It comes through surrender, through peace, through alignment. God speaks clearest when you are still. And in that stillness, he says, a look again, not with your eyes, but with your spirit. And what you see is love, quiet, true, gentle, real. So if you've been surrounded by noise, expectations, pressure, confusion, step away. Be still. Listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Love doesn't always arrive in a roar. Sometimes it's a whisper. And if you lean in close enough, you'll hear it, you'll feel it. And you'll see the one who was always there. Not loud, not forceful, but faithful. Because God doesn't reveal love when you're running. He reveals it when you're resting. When your soul is finally quiet enough to see not just what you want, but what you've always needed. And in that holy silence, love speaks the loudest. So now you understand, love isn't always lightning in the sky or fireworks in the heart. Sometimes it's a gentle breeze that arrives when you're no longer trying to predict the wind. Sometimes it's a soft light that enters your life when you finally stop searching in the dark. God introduces you to your soulmate not through the noise of desperation, but through the silence of surrender. Not when you're at your loudest, but when your soul is quiet enough to listen. So, you don't have to chase it, you don't have to beg for it. All you need to do is become aligned with who you truly are, peaceful, whole, present, and love will find its way. It always does. It will walk into your life through moments of growth, through sacred silence, through divine timing, through unexplainable peace, and through connections that don't shout but stay. And when it arrives, it won't demand your attention. It will feel like home. You'll recognize it not with your eyes, but with your spirit. You won't have to question it. You'll feel it in the calm. You'll know it in the stillness. You'll trust it in the quiet places of your heart that finally feel seen. Because what God brings into your life doesn't confuse, it clarifies. It doesn't drain, it restores. It doesn't hurt, it heals. And when the one meant for your soul finally stands before you, not as a fantasy but as truth, you will realize the wait was never punishment. It was preparation. The silence was never empty. It was sacred. And love, real, divine, destined love, will no longer be something you're chasing. It will be something you're living.